Alright, let's get started on this mess, shall we? Hello there everybody, I am JT Bear. You probably know that by now if you clicked on the channel anyway, you know. If you're new, hey, I'm weird. Hit subscribe, you'll probably be entertained at some point. If you like gardening, you got twice the chance of getting some value out of this, so why not? Anyway, let's get to the point here. This is my entry into the Allotment Challenge video series. I was tagged / voluntold I was going to do this by our good friend RevtosTV. Check down below in the doobly-doo for a link to his channel. He does a lot of fun stuff with aquaponics. It turns out, really kind of reviewing the situation, that the Allotment Challenge is a Q&A thing. You're going to notice I'm looking down a lot because I wrote them down. My memory's not that good at the best of times. So, let's kind of just get started on this, have a little fun, and bear with me, hopefully you're entertained. First question, how long have I had my plot? Well, those of you who follow my channel know that we just moved. I arrived here in September. It's January. My entire yard is covered beneath, oh, I'd say some parts of it are like 6 inches of snow, some parts of it are closer to 36 inches of snow. It all depends on where the drifts kind of pile up in the wind, but yeah. So how long have I had my plot? Since just before it snowed. Alright, next question. How long did I have to wait? Well, let's see. My parents moved me out of the prairies when I was 5. I'm 40 now. I waited about 35 years to get my plot, but I don't think that's necessarily how the question is initially meant. Couple years after we set up a plan, made a goal, decided this is how long it was going to take. That's how long it took. 18 months, 24 months, somewhere in that neighborhood. Wasn't necessarily the piece of land I was initially looking for, or drooling over for that matter. But it worked out, I think, a lot better in the long run. It's going to be a long run, but yeah, it worked out. Alright, next question. Where did you learn about gardening? The internet, mostly. I think that question probably really means, though, where did you get your first experiences with gardening? In which case I'd have to say my grandparents. On my mother's side, they lived on a good, I think, about an acre of land, big garden in the back, grapevines overhanging everything. They went wild for like 30 years. Actually gotten to swing on a grapevine. Choke up if you're going to do it, because otherwise you drop like a stone until it gets tight. Anyway, that's a different story. My parents had a garden. There was an elderly couple that lived behind the house I grew up in, and they had, I think, the most beautiful garden I've ever seen. Very, very productive. Probably 20 by 30 feet. So, you know, excellent use of space. And she took in basically all of the veg that they needed for a year. I found that really inspiring. And then I have an uncle on my stepfather's side who we call the extreme gardener because he just has such a beautiful backyard, trees and bamboos, and he'd climb like this 40-foot ladder and go put irrigation hoses up in the pine tree that he's got the hanging baskets in, and it's always kind of been around me. My mom did a little gardening, but she was a little more on the marigolds and glads and stuff out in the front, and the decorative gardening, and that all just kind of went crazy. And vegetable gardening there was really, it was a big pile of strawberries for a while. Then there was the rhubarb patch, and then there was the tomatoes from my stepdad, because again, the extreme gardener uncle, everybody got tomato suckers at the beginning of the year, so everybody would have tomatoes. You know, it's family, and you help each other out. So yeah, that would be where I learned about gardening, and the rest of it's kind of been learning as I go. You know, I do what feels right and fix it from there. That's learning about gardening from life and YouTube and you fine viewers with your excellent responses. I've probably learned the most about gardening from my awesome viewers and those responses in the comments and the conversations that come out of it. It's been fantastically educational. Cannot thank you all enough for that. Next question, number 4. Do you plant a winter garden? Yeah. I had check back in my videos. You'll see the most recent update on my aquaponic garden. That was my plan for a winter garden. It's kind of rock solid at the moment. So that plan didn't necessarily work out for me. So what you see behind me is my new winter garden. I've got a couple of pepper plants that have so far survived the abuse of moving halfway across Canada. And, you know, I've got a whole bunch of seed starts up there. I've got my fig trees down in the corner of the stairwell. Check out Clean Valley Farms if you want to see how that's doing. I think that's the last update on that channel. I've got a few pepper plants scattered around the house, and we've still got that pitcher plant that's doing surprisingly well down in the kitchen. So I have a winter garden disguised as houseplants at the moment. Does that really answer the question? Next question. What was your biggest success this year and or ever? My biggest success this year was probably that Indigo Rose tomato tree out front in the old place. I really didn't think that would work, and that produced pounds and pounds and pounds of awesome, flavorful tomatoes. I mean, it was a watering nightmare because it was south facing in a desert location, so I had to water it like 2 and 3 times a day some days, but wow, that was absolutely phenomenal. And then, you know, that being said, the one that was in the aquaponic garden out back, that was an incredible success too. But most folks who have grown aquaponic tomatoes know that that's not really a big surprise. Once the system gets developed, tomatoes do really, really well. So, you know, my biggest gardening success ever, I would have to really stop and think about. This is kind of an unusual answer to the question. My biggest gardening success ever was hearing my younger son complain when he moved out of the house because he couldn't get fresh vegetables anymore. Does that count? To me, that was a success. That was win right there. Gardener parent win right there. Yeah. Biggest success ever, for sure. Okay, so next, what has been your biggest gardening disaster? My biggest gardening disaster, I think beyond question, was trying to move an aquaponic garden 1,800 kilometers or so, roughly 1,300 miles, across Canada in the fall. That I broke my heart when I lost all the fish. Most of my plants died. The ones that didn't die in the move are now dying outside under the ice. That would be my biggest disaster. Secondary to that would be buying $100 a koi just to watch them die because I think I put too much iron in the water one time, and that was it. Too much of a change, they couldn't cope with it. So, but otherwise, there are no real disasters in gardening. There are educational experiences, and there are small harvests, you know. But if you try to grow yourself some food, there can be no disaster if you have the right perspective. So, yeah. Next. Do you have a tried and true crop variety that you always grow? I'm a pepper freak. I am a total hot pepper freak. Now, that may be because of the desert that we're in. I found that hot peppers with their thinner walls do a little bit better when they're, well, water starved, for lack of a better term. They survive better, they produce fruit more consistently. The sweet bell peppers that I often use in my cooking, they don't perform quite as well for me, I find. But this is supposedly a much more, we're going to say, moist location, so I'm hoping that they will do really well. I'm hoping that the new location here will be good for tomatoes too, but that's something I'm kind of dabbling with. Believe it or not, I used to hate tomatoes, foursquare against them, but when you grow them yourself, it opens up a whole new world of flavor that's just completely absent from grocery store tomatoes. Well worth a try. It's another one of those gateway plants. So, yeah. Tried and true crop variety that I always grow would definitely be hot peppers. Yes. What is this? Question number 8. Are you planning anything new next year? Yeah, I want to build a new greenhouse, preferably one that can handle the winter temperatures out here and can survive in snow and won't be frozen solid when I go to check it in December and stuff. Yeah. But seriously, want to do some orchard type work. I'd like to put in a few fruit trees. We've got a huge lot to the side of us. Gets lots of sun in the summertime, so I'm hopeful that we can find a few really hardy species of trees and start filling up our storehouses, our coffers, our basement with homegrown fruit. Best kind, right? Some apples out front already, got some Saskatoon berries, got a lot of stuff in the semi-permaculture garden. I guess, you know, something new for it would be, it's going to get planted somewhere real and they'll finally get out of buckets. hoping they live through the winter first. If they live through the winter, they'll finally get out of buckets. I'd like to build a much larger aquaponic garden this year. I'd like to try a few different aquaponic garden builds in general. I've still never built myself an IBC tote garden, and I really want to do that. I still haven't built a barrel ponics garden. I'm hoping to do that this year. But, you know, who knows? New garden projects this year. I'm going to be planting the biggest garden I've ever had in my life. So, probably going to be doing lots of new stuff this year. Growing watermelons. I hope to be growing watermelons. I was given some seeds by the neighbor that are supposedly for some giant pumpkin varieties, so that's really cool. I'm hoping to have the most complete herb garden collection of my life going on this year, so yeah, I guess I'm doing lots of new things in the garden this year. Yeah, cool. Question number 9. How do you preserve your crops? Yeah, I'd say up to this point, the vast majority of my crops get preserved by drying. Dry up the peppers, powder them up, use them in just about anything. Check out the cooking channel, you'll see that's absolutely true. And yeah, other than that, I guess canning would be the next way to go. Do not as much canning as I'd like to, but again, getting back to one of the previous questions, once we got the orchard up and going, hoping to get a lot more canning done, because, you know, how else are you going to preserve certain aspects of the food? So, yeah, currently it's preserved through dehydrators. Future dehydrating and canning. There you go. Otherwise, a lot of what I have grown up to this point has also been, well, harvested and consumed within minutes or hours, depending on what I harvested, right? So, it's one of my favorite things about gardening is, well, what do I want for lunch today? Well, we'll go see what's ripe. I'll have one of these, I'll have one of these, a couple leaves from this. Man, I got this massive salad. Happy bear. Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on with my crops there. Number 10. What is your favorite meal to cook with veg from the plot? My favorite meal to cook with veg is anything. Anything that involves veg that came from my garden is my favorite meal of the moment. I don't like to pick sides. I don't like to pick favorites. I suppose if I had to, though, and it's a challenge, this is the challenge part, and you got to do things like picking favorites. I would guess the fried kale with some fresh onions out of the gnome garden. Throw in some raisins there. I meant to do this for the cooking channel, never got around to it. That was amazing, absolutely amazing. And that's almost entirely out of the garden. We had grapes at the time. I didn't make the raisins, but you know, I was growing grapes, so I figured it all kind of balances itself out. Let's see what else. Basically, yeah, anything that I can put the hot peppers into is then my next favorite meal of the moment, because I put my powdered pain peppers into everything. We stay pretty healthy. I get, you know, thank yous from the little woman all the time about all the vitamin C, and we don't really have a flu season in our house and things like that, and I credit a lot of that to the vitamins and minerals and stuff that come out of the garden. So every meal that comes out of my plot is my favorite meal that comes out of my plot. And you know what they say, hashtag grateful, right? So there you go. I guess traditionally I'm supposed to tag other people in this, but I don't necessarily like doing that yet, so I'm just going to let this carry on. But if you've enjoyed this video, by all means let me know. Thank Rev for it, by all means please do. Check the link down below. Go visit his channel. If you're not already subbed to him, you should be. You're missing some pretty entertaining stuff. He's got very, very nice tomatoes growing on in his greenhouse there. Just a little jelly right now, because I have ice in my greenhouse right now. But yeah, so I'm going to wrap this up there and say thank you all for sticking around to this point. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. If you liked the video, click the button. If you're a new subscriber, well, then you're going to need to subscribe for that to be a genuine statement. And yeah, you know, hey, share the video, all that jazz. I will see you guys next time. Have a fantastic day.